your dog still in there?
No, that was me typing.
Oh, right. Anyways,
But
folks, welcome back.
Like.
Welcome back to First Calamity Daily, where occasionally the tech works and sometimes the podcast happens. But
as I joked to Brad earlier, because we could see each other but not hear each other, on today's very special episode of First Ring Daily, watch Paul and Brad watch each other work.
He's not wrong, folks. He is.
Just pretty much the level of interaction we're going to have.
Yeah. I mean, it is. The Christmas season is upon us, Paul. The old fat man going to come down the chimney, which, by the way, my daughter is scared he might actually stay in the house rather than just deposit the gifts and leave. And so we are.
You know what? Honestly, that's got to be a very common fear. Children are often very scared of Santa. You know, when you go to get the photo, we all have pictures of ourselves and our kids screaming on the lap of a red-suited fat man. And it is kind of weird. It's like the clown thing, right? I mean, Santa Claus in many ways looks like a giant fat clown, and clowns are scary. Yeah. So yeah, I can't. This is a weird tradition. It really is.
Nothing like a little breaking and entering.
Yeah. Usually beanie is frowned on, but for some reason on Christmas Eve it's cool.
Realistically, yeah. I mean, that would be the ultimate dream, right? But you know what's the ultimate dream, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
You know where this is going. Getting Chrome in the Windows Store, which we almost have, but not really.
What a steaming pile of uselessness this thing is. I mean,
are you talking about iTunes again or Chrome?
No. Although that falls into the same general bucket. No, I'm referring to what you're referring to, which is that someone has created a store app that runs the Chrome installer, which is a desktop app, and it doesn't really do anything. It's just, it's like it must be like that single shell command, whatever it's called, that runs, you can run an app from it. Sad.
Yep. For those who have maybe read misleading headlines, there's now a way to download Google Chrome through the Windows Store, but basically you download the app and then that app opens in a web page to then download the actual Chrome for the desktop. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. What I'd like to think is that Google was sitting on their high throne in the last 48 hours and saw that iTunes was not going to make it into the Windows Store, and they're like, I bet we can have some fun here and
Mehdi, talking to Brad and I on Skype this morning, said he wishes he could leave negative ratings for apps. And I wrote, this app is so bad it ruined other parts of my life, -5 stars. It's like, what a weird thing to have. But okay, this is what we got.
Yeah. I guess maybe
Microsoft put that in the store. Microsoft saw that, knew what it was, and said, yeah, this is good enough. Let's put it in the store.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You know what they don't have in the store, though, is actually Edge. But, that's we're not bitter. We're not bitter about these logical moves. Speaking of store apps, this wasn't in the show notes. Have you heard anything about the Office apps? Now, we know that they're in there, but they were supposed to be, we should look up the timeline. They were supposed to be kind of like coming to everybody at some point. But
So, no, there's been no news about that. And the thing that I've seen in my own experience is that you basically just get it on certain devices, right? Like if you get a Surface laptop, that thing will be available to you. They're actually kind of pre-installed, and it's the personal version of Office 365, which, frankly, I think they need to be a little more sophisticated about, because a lot of us have like home and then obviously in the future we're going to have the commercial versions. But no, I mean, there's been no movement or expansion of this at all. I will say that if you have the Office apps installed this way, the Office 365, they're updated like continually. On the Surface laptop, I noticed that. Not every single time, but a lot of times I'll just go in and kind of manually run a check for app updates, not because it's necessary, but because I'm just curious. And it is amazing how often those apps are updated for some reason. So it's not always clear if it's like a big deal or whatever, but so no, I mean, no new versions, no expansion to new audiences. What is it? It's almost the 20th. I mean, we're running out of time, right? I don't think we're going to see a lot of movement there this month, right? Because we're hitting the holidays.
Yep. And that's really all there is to say about that. Something else that maybe not everybody will care about, but I definitely do, because it was actually one of the highest hitting stories on Petri for the year, and it came out about 3-ish weeks ago. Basically, to recap the story, Microsoft was trying to get VMware services into Azure, and I suspect that they went to VMware and they're like, nah, or they wanted some money or something dumb. Something happened, in the words of Microsoft. Something happened between that conversation, and Microsoft apparently probably gave them the finger, went and found a third-party provider that does VMware stuff and they're certified or whatever, and started working with them to get the stuff into Azure. They made this announcement. VMware wasn't so happy. They said, we are explicitly not going to support this scenario. And then again, something happened. And then VMware quietly amended that blog post and said, you know what, actually, we are going to support this scenario. And Microsoft came out with a blog post and said, yeah, this is actually going to happen next year. And now we're working with multiple providers.
There you go.
Yeah. So I suspect that something happened between these two companies where they were pissed off at each other. Microsoft went the nuclear route. VMware went, oh shit, our whole company is going to crumble eventually because we're kind of a legacy product anyways. I didn't actually say that out loud, but anyways. And they said, okay, we'll make it work. And now it's coming next year. So,
this is an interesting area in general, isn't it? Like it's like when Amazon decided they were not going to sell Chromecast and Google devices in the store. And, Google had has a Google store, and they used to sell third-party hardware. Now they don't. And, you see some scaling back. I think recently, this past week, perhaps Amazon said that they would, in fact, start selling Chromecast again, but not Google Home, that kind of thing. And I feel like, it's hard because these guys obviously compete with each other, but, it's like the Chrome in the store thing. Like I would like Google to release Chrome in the store. I think that'd be fantastic, if they could make it work. But they're always like opposing forces and competitive things that we don't quite understand. We used to see this in Windows Phone all the time. Remember, that was always the big concern. There was a YouTube app that Microsoft and Google were or were not working on together. Google started blocking it. It was kind of back and forth. And it's like, what are we fighting about here? It just seems kind of strange. Like VMware should want to be on Azure, Yep. So I guess they will be.
Yeah, through third-party provider solutions. Not, I don't think through natively or whatever. But anyway, so that's coming. That's Microsoft's making it happen, and kumbaya, life goes on, and that's pretty much all you need to know there. But actually, I'll be curious. I'm guessing we won't hear anything for a while because they just keep saying GA will be next year.
I think everything is getting punted now to 2018. So if it hasn't happened yet, I think we hit the date.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, Christmas is next week. There's going to be nobody working next week. I should say nobody's probably dumb enough to ship a product next week during the holidays because
let's ship a new version of an app on Christmas Eve and see what happens.
Yep.
It's just ruin everyone's life.
Yep. Something else, Paul, which I know we are both big fans of the new Firefox, but I will tell you what, Paul, I'm back on Chrome. It hurts.
I'm interested in why, and I actually was just considering today writing a post about, I am still using Firefox, but these couple of things are problematic for me. So what happened to you?
So there's one really big thing, and then another minor thing. Grammarly, the third-party plugin we use for grammatical checking, does not work very well in Firefox. It requires an additional step. It doesn't work natively in the WordPress plugin, at least on my installs. I uninstalled it several times. I tagged Grammarly. They said, yes, we know there's a known issue. And so
I've been meaning to contact you about this very topic because I thought it was one of my other plugins triggering this. In other words, when you paste text into a text field or whatever in Chrome, you get all the little squigglies and everything. Right. There have been situations on Firefox where I've not published, but maybe, what do you call it? You save the article or whatever, and the screen flashes first, and for 1 second you can see the squigglies in there, and then it disappears, and I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. And I've actively been trying to figure this one out. So you're saying this is a weird incompatibility with, I assume, the latest version of Firefox. Is that the?
Yes.
Or just with Firefox? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about the latest version. Yep. I just know that is not working. So that was the first kind of tipping point. And then yesterday I used TweetDeck for all my Twitter goodness, and it was not playing any media in the little tweets. Like it just said incompatible, not playback. And I opened it in Chrome, and the video played back just fine. I said, meh, you know what? It's there we go.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
I'm of two minds on this stuff, because there's an idealistic part of me that wants to support Mozilla specifically, but also just entities that are like this, that are just respectful of your privacy and transparent and open and you know, generally good or whatever. On the flip side, I feel like people with Google often take a hard stance on the company's products and services because they feel like their privacy is, you know, either literally being threatened or that they just don't like something about Google. And that's a punch yourself in the face kind of thing that I also think is kind of dumb. And so I don't have a moral, I don't have a moral concern with Google personally. I understand some people do, but the functionality there is so good, I just don't, you know, care. You and I have talked a lot about like the memory and resource usage on the browsers, and I've not looked at this in a long time because, frankly, although I did look at it because this was a concern, you know, and my own testing, I find that Firefox uses less system resources than Chrome, you know, whatever. I don't care. My computer has lots of RAM, and you know, every time someone complains about like, well, Chrome uses too much memory, you know, it's like, what are you saving it for? What do you mean? Like Windows can take it back, you know, like if the system needs it for something else, it will take it. It's not, that's how Windows works. You know, you don't have a reserve of RAM sitting over in the corner for a rainy day. Let it use the RAM. I mean, if you're doing something like video editing, like you might do, Brad, like I would say turn off Chrome. You know, if you're worried about it, just do that. But yeah, my issues are a little convoluted and very specific to me. I have talked, this is an issue with Edge as well. All of the browsers support a developer mode, and the developer mode is a thing where you can go in and look at the elements that are in a page and so forth. On every browser has this, but on Chrome in particular, it's really good for getting images out of a page, because a lot of web pages today on a modern website, you can't right-click the image and just download it. And what I want to do is, you know, I'm writing about a Microsoft product. I want to use a Microsoft image or whatever. It's very hard to do with the other browsers. It's very easy to do with Chrome, and I still miss that. That hits me a couple times a week, I would say. The other one is the web app thing. You know, I use those Chrome lists, if you will, Chrome windows for Google Inbox, Google Calendar, and Twitter Lite, which is mobile.twitter.com. They run like applications off the taskbar. I still very much prefer to do that. And so even in the context of me using Firefox full time, the reality is those three apps, which, let's face it, throughout the day are pretty important. I mean, I use them a lot. Still running Chrome, right? So I'm still running Chrome regardless. The other issue is if you sent me an email and it said, here's a hyperlink, click on this thing, it doesn't open in Firefox, even though it's my default browser, because that browser is Chrome. It will open in a new Chrome window. So Chrome still pops up like some haunted Jack in the Box, you know, even if I don't want to use it. So, yeah. You know, I love Firefox, and it's great. And this new version they made is fantastic. I think they've done a wonderful job. It looks like Edge, which I really like, and it renders text better than Chrome, which I really like. But yeah, I mean, you know.
So I have exciting news here, Paul. You're never going to guess this. So as of right now, as a company, we use Google Apps. That's one of the things that we use for our company. And the calendar was stuck in the old-timey, crappy Google Calendar. But as of just now checking, Paul, we now have the new fancy, updated Google Calendar.
I've actually been using that new calendar for a long time. I'm curious why you didn't have it.
Well, it wasn't on the business accounts. It was on the personal accounts. At least it wasn't for me. But now. Oh,
okay. So, yeah. So you're using, in other words, you're not at Thurrott.com. You're at BWW.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
The BWW
so
group.
I don't know who manages that, but you could have turned that on a long time ago. So I make sure to turn on. I use Thurrott.com, obviously. So I turn that stuff on as soon as you can.
How do I You know what? Because why not? How do I turn this into a Chrome app or whatever, a desktop app? What do I got to do? If it's a Chromeless window?
Yep. Let me bring up Chrome too. So you're looking at it. You go to the little dot menu in the top. You go to More Tools, Add to Desktop. When the dialog comes up, there's a little checkbox that says something like in a new window or open in a window.
Yeah.
You want to check that. You want that.
So open as
and
window.
Then you can pin it to the taskbar if you want to do that, which you should, I guess. For whatever it's worth, once you've done this once, don't make the mistake of doing it again on another computer or later on this computer. Once you've made this thing run as an app, it will be in the apps list in Chrome, and all you have to do is click on it from there. And so in your, it's Chrome ://apps, but you could also get to it from the browser, the favorites bar or whatever it's called. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Now I got to see, can you add other calendars? Like, can I add my Outlook calendar to this?
To the web version of Calendar? I don't believe so. Looking.
Damn.
You can add a coworker's calendar, but that's just like a view thing.
Yeah, no, what I need, because I use Outlook.com, that's the calendar I share with my wife. And
so if you go into settings, you could share you probably wouldn't be able to access it, but if you share your calendar from Outlook.com using a URL, you will be able to add that from settings. If you go to settings and there's an add calendar.
There we go.
Yeah, that might work.
Because all I need, I think, is read access, but this might work.
Just to display it. Yep.
That is until Newton Mail gets their calendar to Windows 10, which they said is coming eventually. So
Google I'm considering, because there's not a lot to write about right now, obviously, because it's the end of the year. So I did like the audiobook and podcast thing. I was thinking about doing like a mobile app list, and there is a short list of Google apps that are just indispensable, and Google Maps is one, and Google Calendar is one. I love Google Calendar. I think it's lightweight and feature rich. It's awesome.
Yeah, I actually have a post written. I haven't decided if I'm going to publish it yet. It's one of these more kind of like, well, you'll see why. It's one of these more kind of like different and interesting things. And you probably went through, I would imagine, something similar, although maybe not quite as pervasive. So I was having a conversation with my wife, and we're at the point now where my daughter is becoming like acutely aware of technology, right? She understands what an iPad is.
Really, in your house? That's weird.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, we've actually tried very hard to kind of keep those things away from her. Not for any like negative reason, but because we knew that once she learned how to use an iPad, there's no going back, right? Once they figure it out, it's game over. They run and they kind of rule that kind of thing. And so we've intentionally kept her away from it, just trying to let her, just do analog things, if you will. And so the post that I wrote up is trying to figure out when does that balance occur? What's the right way? Because on one hand, it all kind of started, I actually tweeted a picture of it. Like, she came home talking about starfish. That's what they were learning in school. And so I pulled up Planet Earth, and she watched 20 minutes on, I was actually just the top of this. And and that I think is educational in good times, but then it's how much is, is it a bad thing if she's using it for education or what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, no, right. You're right. You're a good parent, Brad. See, a lot of people don't think about this stuff. My kids.
It's a very personal thing.
It is, but the problem is this stuff is still so new. We don't understand the ramifications, right? And I've seen in my own experience, just my attention span is much less than it used to be. I'm a big reader, and I have trouble reading big things now. You can think about something like a Stephen King book that's 1,000 pages long. When I was 1980s or 1990s, I would pour through that thing like it was butter. And now I look at it and I'm like, ugh. I can't even get through that much of it. And we've been conditioned, I think, from the web in this case, to read small form, short form writing, little blurbs, quick, stupid clickbait headlines, and you're not going to believe what this actress from the 1980s looks like now. And and you now think about doing that to a kid whose brain is infinitely more pliable than mine. that's a tragedy. I mean, that could be terrible. So you're smart to worry about it. I don't think anyone has the exact answer right now, unfortunately. I think with my own kids who are, roughly 10 years older than, or 10 or 15 even years older than your kid, there was technology, but it was much more nascent. And there was more of an element of, if my son, who was very young, wanted to play a video game, for example, which I did allow, he would have to come to the room where the computer was and sit in front of it, and he'd be with me, next to me, and he would play a video game. Today my daughter can take her iPhone and she's off in her own world. I mean, sometimes she walks through the house and I say something to her. She doesn't hear me because she's got like earbuds and she's in her own little cocoon. And it's like, it's not necessarily great.
Yeah, no, and it's only going to get worse. And so one of the things we do in our house is no cell phones at the dinner table. And when we go out to restaurants, no cell phones either, because we want our kid to just kind of sit there and color and figure out how to entertain herself. But to your point, as the kid grows up, you lose a little bit of that control because it's almost like a requirement that they have access to certain things and then become their own human. And then they're asking for money in cars. And Yeah,
I was, it's funny.
Slippery slope.
Yeah. And I have many pet peeves, as you might imagine, but I've been on planes and in restaurants where the parents will give the kid a little tablet or a phone or something so that they can watch a movie or play a game without headphones on. So we all get to enjoy the blaring sound from this stupid thing. And I've said things to people. I'm horrible. I'm a horrible person. Nobody wants to listen to your stupid shit. I don't understand why people do stuff like that. But the funny thing is, what you just reminded me of is one of the last times I went out to eat with my wife, we were in a restaurant where there was a table next to us with a couple of little kids. And the two little kids each had their own little kiddie tablet thing. And they were both wearing headphones. And I commented to my wife, because in addition to being a terrible person, when I see things that are good, I also comment on that. I said, I feel like going over and say something to these guys. Like, they're good parents. They're not forcing the rest of us to listen to this, right? But actually, what you just reminded me is that that's better than the alternative, but not as good as, here's an idea. Just be at the table with us and be present at in what we're doing, right? Like, in other words, that's lazy. As a parent, they're going to a restaurant, they want to have a good experience, and so they're going to put their kids in a cocoon and not worry about it so that they can drink a glass of wine and have a normal conversation rather than engage with their kids.
Right.
It's kind of like the eating thing where I said, maybe you should just be hungry sometimes. It's not that horrible. Maybe you should be bored sometimes. It's not that horrible. When I used to drive around in a car with my parents, short distances or halfway across the country, we sat in the back of the car and that was it. There was nothing to play with. Like, we played with each other. We made little games like, how many license plates do you see of a certain kind? Or I own the thing that's on my side of the highway, or, whatever. And you used your brain. No, but I mean, you used your brain. And,
no, you're right.
Yeah. Well, I'm right, but I kind of forgot it. Like I said, you just reminded me of it. Like, I'm thinking like, these guys are doing a great job, when in fact I should have walked up over and smacked them. Like, it's just, and there it is. That's our life of degrees now. Like, I mean, there's so many ways we can screw up with technology.
Yep. Speaking of old man yelling at the clouds, last week when I was when I was down on the Gulf Shores, actually, when we were playing golf, this was actually really neat. So these are the Blue Angels back here practicing.
Yeah.
And they were doing like a loop, and we were playing golf. It was actually really neat. I've never actually seen the Blue Angels in person, and to watch them kind of fart around and play was pretty.
Did they draw any cloud genitalia, or is that different pilots?
No, that's was that just a Navy pilot over Washington D.C.?
So, yeah.
Unfortunately, no. They were just doing loops and other figure eights and that kind of stuff, but nothing phallic.
Probably for the best.
Yep. Paul, it is Tech Tuesday here. You've got another HP Envy laptop. Is that right?
Yeah. So, this effect. I mean, we review products, and if you're HP or Lenovo or Microsoft or whoever, it doesn't matter. And you want somebody to review your product, you're not going to give them a little piece of crap that doesn't cost anything. You're going to give them the $3,000 wonder laptop that everyone really wants but can't afford, and not guarantee, but chances are you're going to get a pretty good review because those products are awesome. Of course they are. So if you look over the products I've reviewed this year, you'll notice that a lot of them are premium laptops or premium devices of whatever kind, because that's what they give you. And the truth is I can't afford most of those things personally, and I don't think a lot of people can. One of the nice things about HP in particular is that they don't just make premium PCs. Obviously, they have a whole range of PCs, and they have, Pavilions, which are very mainstream PCs for consumers who are never going to leave the house. All my Siri devices just turned on when I said that. That's funny. They have various premium lines like Spectre and EliteBook and so forth in the high end. But in the middle, they also have this kind of premium tweener brand called Envy. And Envy is kind of where the sweet spot is if you want the premium features but can't afford the truly premium things. It's like buying a high-end Toyota instead of a Lexus or whatever, right? So in the case of this particular laptop, which starts at $850, you get the kind of premium styling, this new kind of hard edge that's new to HP for 2014. You get modern ports like USB-C with Thunderbolt, and legacy ports like regular USB. In fact, you get 2 of each of those things, which is kind of wonderful. And so to me, like what this thing does is provide a great value. And I've always liked that part of all markets, whatever you're talking about, whether it's services or hardware products, whatever, that this thing represents a tremendous value. It's a machine that is not super cheap, granted. I mean, you're going to spend about $1,000 for a good one, but it will last many, many years. Has high-end components. This thing is a quad-core processor, Core i5, 8th generation, or i7. I think it starts at 8 gigs of RAM, goes to 16. That's very typical today. You could get it with as little as 128 gigs of internal storage, but you could get it with as much as a terabyte as well if you want that. And it actually has a discrete graphics option, which is very unusual in this price range. So, look, I can't help it. There's no way we're not going to be reviewing more premium products. That's what they give us. Like the Surface Books that Microsoft handed out for review probably have an average list price of like $2,800. This thing costs about, well, not quite a third, but we'll say between a third and half that. And it's not the same kind of device. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not a Ferrari, but it's a wonderful device. And, I still need to review it. I'm going to check out the battery life and all that stuff, but solid entry. Really nice.
Well, we look forward to that. This is not actually a sponsored post by V8 Energy. That's just... It took many minutes to get this podcast started, and I needed a drink. And
I said to you that I'm going to start measuring today's delay in Call of Duty matches I could be playing, and the number was 2.5.
I would do the same for PlayerUnknown Battleground, but the problem with that game is a match is either about 3 minutes long or 30 minutes. There's not a whole lot in between.
Middle ground there.
Yeah. So,
did you see, by the way, that they released a major update?
Yes, for the
allegedly,
Xbox.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I'm still holding out that I will eventually transition to the Xbox for playing this game, but as of right now, it's kind of like the Chrome and Edge scenario, right? It's like, well, you could, but it's like the grass is a little bit greener over here because everything works and it's a lot better. And so
we're a lot of interactions with Edge users today. These people are just in delusion. Like I it's just like, well, it's okay for what I do. It's like, yeah, a go-kart would be okay for getting to the store too, but that we've invented a car, right? I mean, like, I get that it works. That's not the point. I don't understand like hurting yourself to use a Microsoft product in this case. Like, I just like Microsoft. It's like, that's really
when Firefox
smart.
is there too. Yeah. And a lot of people are a big fan of Brave as well. I have never used it, but every time I mention Firefox, like, you got to try Brave. And I'm like, you have to be brave.
I've tried every browser under the sun, and like you went running back to Chrome, and honestly, there's some good reasons for that, and I could picture doing it myself. But I think this is basically a 2-horse race, and these other things are interesting for whatever reason, but whatever. I mean, like Opera, I wish them the best. Really, I do. But I just, I don't know.
You got anything else for today, Paul?
No, I think I'm just going to crank out some of 2017 lists today. There's nothing to write about.
No, I mean, 'tis the season, right? I suspect if there's going to be bad news, it'll drop on Friday.
Jeez, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Yeah,
Actually, there
exactly.
might be, okay, by the way, there is one thing this week that could be huge, which is that new Windows Insider build, which I think might literally represent the majority of what we're going to see in the next version of Windows 10. So that could
It's got to be
happen as
close.
soon as today. Meaning the Windows Insider guys, Donna Sakar and Brandon and so forth, maintain that they're trying to do it this week. So that's something to hold out for. That could be our one bit of big news this week.
Yeah. And I mean, considering this thing is going to probably ship in, the third month of the year, they've got to be pretty close to getting it to feature complete, not necessarily bug complete, but they've got to start wrapping up new feature introduction. So that way they have, because what they usually take 6 to 8 weeks for just, total lockdown, bug smashing, which doesn't give them a whole lot of time, especially with the holidays here. So
you're basically talking about a month and a half if you exclude December, which we will because no one's going to be around. It's this. I think you and I talked the other day about the weirdness of we're now explicitly testing features that might be in the next version of Windows 10, which is a first. This is also the first time they haven't formally stepped up and said, okay, here's what we're doing for this version. They usually have a reviewer event of some kind. It's been tied to Surface events in the past, and they're not doing it for this version. And it's a little weird. So I'm really curious to see what this build has. I think this, like I said, I think this is going to be the big picture, what to expect in the next version.
So there you go, folks. Hopefully that'll drop today, or at least in the next 48 hours. Let's hope. If not, I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. But with that, folks, that wraps it up for today. We'll be back here tomorrow for We Help Wednesday. Make sure to check out the forums, drop your questions in there, and we will successfully avoid them on tomorrow's episode. Otherwise, have yourselves a wonderful day.
10 a.m.